of the time and attention of the President and the Congress. In a private farewell to his cabinet, President Nixon stated, "Mistakes, yes. For personal gain, never. I can only say to each one of you, we come from many faiths, but really the same God. You will be in our hearts and in our prayers."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Glad to have you along. Friday brings about the news roundup and comment in for Jim Schneider. I am Dalton Windsor. Thank you for joining us on this 8th day of the 8th month of 2025. We are closer to 2026. The year 2026, we're closer now to that than it is truly going so fast. And, all in God's time. But I think of the scripture, Lord, teach us to number our days that we might apply our hearts unto wisdom. Super big thank you to Sandy for compiling stories that we might share here on the program here today. Thanks to Dennis in Master Control, Molly, all of the team here at VCY. It's been a great week of broadcast. We actually have done a little looking back this week, and it's neat to do that. Yesterday, re-airing a broadcast where we featured from a VCY rally back in 2023, and that doesn't seem possible either, that was already a couple of years ago. But Pastor Erwin Lutzer was with us here in Milwaukee. He was our speaker at our spring rally. Annually, we have rallies in the spring and the fall. And in 2023, it was Pastor Erwin Lutzer, and his message was titled, "We Will Not Bow." And as we were putting that together for rebroadcast, obviously when we have a rally, people come from miles around to attend. And then also people tune in at the same time because, someone in Texas most likely not going to be able to travel up into southeast Wisconsin to actually be with us. And while we would love that to happen, and things like that have happened before, we know that they can at least tune in on the VCY network and enjoy the live presentation that we do. In fact, coming up next month, we will have yet another our coming fall rally at VCY. So we'll be telling you about that more in the coming days and weeks ahead. But yesterday's broadcast, if you missed it, and maybe you heard it a couple of years ago, that message, "We will not bow," and we all of us, we've heard a lot of messages. We, of course, are blessed by, I hope you're being blessed at your home church, by your pastor, the ministry that God has provided to you and your family and your community, the messages at your home church. Hopefully it's something that you feed on really through the week. But then also, if we're blessed to be able to hear something on, radio or podcast or Christian television, whatever the case, this message yesterday, and I know I got to get going here, but that message, "We will not bow," we, of course, got that in post-production. We got that ready for rebroadcast, and I was making notes, and I still have my notes from a couple of years ago, and re-listening again, there's things I could add to it because there is so much in the teaching, so much from God's Word that we can apply to our help, apply our hearts unto wisdom in this day in which we live. And we've all have, many of us, if you're like me, you have more years behind you now than you do ahead of you, at least years here on this earth. And you say, well, I've heard a lot of messages, and praise God for that, but I'm still learning. That's the attitude we all should have. And yes, that's yours truly here. I'm still learning, still have a lot to learn. But then I also want to see this teaching hit the next generation. And that's why you and I are still here, that we too might be able to impart some truth, or a lot of truth, biblical truth, to that next generation who so desperately need it. You, my listening friend, may be the only Jesus. You may be the only Jesus that someone else will ever see. And you've heard that, but it's true. It's simply true. And you, in your sphere, your world, your community, your town, your church, wherever you are, you will be able to reach someone that I could never reach, that your pastor could never reach, that your church will never reach. Only you. And now we know why God leaves us here after he gives us new life in Christ, after we're born again, because sure, he could just take us on up to heaven, and that would be greater, Paul said. But instead, we're left here, thankfully, to serve him and to grow in the grace and the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. Bless his name. So, great programs this week. Go to the website, crosstalkamerica.com, crosstalkamerica.com. And we're excited about more of the same coming up next week. Not even time to go into next week, but God willing, some more great broadcasts here on the VCY America Radio Network and this station airing Crosstalk. So we're going to start out today in, familiar territory in regards to some hot button issues, but it's going to take us into the Northeast, and we're going to be spending just a little bit of time talking about New York City.
New York City?
Yes, New York City. Friends, there is a lot going on there, and as you know, what's going on in New York City affects the rest of this country, whether you know it or not. Fox New York, Fox 5 there, reporting this week about the new poll that was conducted. Zenith Research and Public Progress Solutions have found that Zohran Mamdani is his name. He's the Democratic nominee for mayor there of New York City. And he apparently has a significant lead in the current field of the 5 candidates, attaining 50% of the vote regardless of his opponent. This is the latest poll that's come out earlier this week. The poll was conducted July 16 to July 24. They surveyed 1,453 New York City residents. This poll, a 2.9% margin of error for registered voters and a 3.9% margin of error for likely 2025 mayoral election voters. Now, Mamdani is the only candidate of the 5 that the majority of respondents to this poll, which is 58%, Mamdani is the only candidate that 58% of those responding say they would consider voting for in this coming November's election. Who else is on that ticket? Andrew Cuomo, Mayor Adams, and then there's some other ones. There's a couple other ones, but in comparison, you have Mamdani, 58% saying they're going to consider voting for him November's election, 37% considering Cuomo, and we know that's a loaded story there, 27% saying they would consider voting again for Mayor Adams. And this is at the top of the stack here. There's several things that we want to share here. It's definitely newsworthy on the program here today. From hotair.com, Zohran Mamdani, the top member of the Democratic Socialists of America, and according to one of his DSA advisors, he is planning to turn New York City into an alphabet nirvana, where anybody in the country who wants gender-affirming care can get it for free. Not just New York City residents, but anybody anywhere in the country could go to New York City and get gender-affirming care for free. And apparently here, the city will even provide free room and board during their time there. Now, gender-affirming care, we understand, is that hot-button issue in our time today, which basically just says that God made a mistake, that God didn't know what he was doing when he was putting human beings here on earth, that he really didn't assign a gender when we were all born, that it was just really fluid, that it was up to us to decide, regardless of our physical attributes, that, if you think you were born in the wrong body, they in New York proposed here, Mamdani is going to say that everyone can come here and we will help you become who you need to be. The quote here says, Zoran is literally attempting to do what conservatives say we want to do, which is provide gender-affirming care to anyone who wants it for free. We're going to fly people in and pay for their hotel rooms. Now, that's from Daniel Goulden, a member of the New York City DSA's steering committee, as he recently spoke on a panel the DSA just uploaded from last month's Socialism 2025 conference. Jihad Watch saying that Mamdani is preparing to enable a new wave of anti-Semitic violence. Jews are the victims of the majority of hate crimes, especially religious hate crimes, where? In New York City. Mamdani has proposed that the NYPD should not respond to hate crimes, instead that they be handled by social workers. And this is not simply police defunding. Rather, this shifts the resources away from responding to attacks on Jews. This isn't just a pro-crime policy. It's strategically calculated to protect members of his community who attack Jews while exposing Jews to religiously motivated assaults. You see why this news needs to come out. People need to know what is going on. Just the News reporting on Mamdani this week, saying that if elected mayor, Mamdani would fight against charter schools, leading parents to respond with outrage there. Here's a quote. I oppose efforts by the state to mandate an expansion of charter school operations in New York City. He said this in a Staten Island Advanced Questionnaire. Charter schools, which are publicly funded and educate lower-income students, would not even be allowed to share the same space as city-owned buildings, according to Mamdani. And then the Gateway Pundit, keeping things in New York and on the subject of the New York City mayoral race and Mamdani. And we may run out of time here. I'll get this started and we'll come back. We're going to play some audio that is mind-blowing. And it's kind of hard to listen to. The quality of it is kind of hard, but we'll try to make the most of it that we can. During a recent event for the Democratic Socialists of America, a panelist there argued in favor of performing abortions in churches, dismantling the family unit, and several other completely insane things. And it's very important to know that these people are the very ones that are driving the candidacy of Mamdani in this November's New York City mayor race. And I'm just reading from this article, completely insane things. I don't know that even describes what we're going to share with you on the other side of this break. You're listening to Crosstalk. Stay with us.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and author at the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, why is the ocean salty?
Chris, salt is added to the ocean on a daily basis as rain falls on the land surface, dissolving salt, which then gets into the rivers and ultimately to the ocean. And we can measure how much salt is carried in the rivers. We also know how much salt is in the ocean. A simple division of the amount of salt by the rate at which it's added shows us that the age of the Earth's oceans is far too young to have allowed for evolution, because evolution assumes that life evolved in a salty sea long ago. But if the oceans were old, they would already be so choked with salt that life would be impossible. You see, Chris, the direct scientific observations do not support the evolution idea. They do support recent creation, and that's the recent creation we read about when we go back to Genesis.
For free information on creation, visit us on the web at www.icr.org.
Yeah, coming up on the best of the week, we get to the weekend and Crosstalk producers, they choose the best broadcast of the week, and I don't know, it's not really an award, but it is something worth re-airing. Coming up tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, we will re-air Jim's visit from this past Tuesday with David and Barbara Lehman. Were you listening this week on Tuesday? It was that episode here where we were talking about the hymns of heaven. Hosannas forever, the hymns of heaven. It was a delightful conversation that Jim had with David and Barbara. They love the Lord, and they love singing to the Lord. And I don't know what it has been about this week that's really just been the theme, I think, of that I've been hearing, picking up on, and even some of the messages that have went out over our broadcast this week of the importance of Christians singing, and how it's even a command that we're to sing unto God. And am I alone in knowing it seems like we've lost our song along the way? But we can get it back. We can get it back, and we need to make a joyful noise. And we're going to re-air this one tomorrow, put the focus back on Tuesday's Crosstalk with our guests, David and Barbara. It was a great episode to listen to again. Maybe join us tomorrow on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central on the VCY America Radio Network, online at crosstalkamerica.com. So just before the break, what have we been talking about? New York City and that mayor race that's going on there, and the Gateway Pundit reporting, let's see, this would have been Wednesday, talking about that recent event that was held for the Democratic Socialists of America and those panelists who were arguing in favor of performing abortions in churches, arguing in favor of dismantling the family unit, and several other, what this article says, insane things. And again, these are the very people, the very ones who are driving, who are supporting the candidate, Mamdani, for the current New York City mayor race. And so imagine this panel, a panel titled The Left and the Family, a round table that actually took place back in July, was part of the Socialism Conference in Chicago. Just what everybody wants to go to. Socialism Conference. Okay, so the DSA there writing in a caption of I guess there was a video that's been uploaded, and the DSA wrote in the caption that the nuclear family, or let's call it the traditional family, one man, one woman, that's the original plan, God's plan, and it's how we're all still here because it's a great plan and it's the only plan that works. Well, they're saying that the nuclear family is an, quote, inherently repressive, racist, heterosexist institution that functionally reinforces and reproduces capitalism. And someone probably says, well, what's wrong with that? But you see how they're setting it up, that the nuclear family's just simply got to go. But throughout the discussion, the panelists were trying to link capitalism and the nuclear family, the traditional family, calling both oppressive systems that are in need of transformation. Now, one of the things we picked up on as we were grabbing some of the audio from this to share is that everyone was wearing a mask. And if you want to wear a mask, that's fine. It's you. It's your life. Everyone was masked, and that is what is kind of working against us in sharing some of the audio here. So we've done our best to try to bring this audio up as much as we can, that we might be able to share some of this. But that comment about they are in favor of having abortion in churches, part of that discussion sounded a little bit like this. We have this one in from clip 1.
And on that revolutionary horizon, want to perform abortions in a church, but before it's all said and done.
A revolutionary on the horizon. What did he say?
And on that revolutionary horizon, want to perform abortions in a church, but before it's all said and done.
The revolutionary horizon, where they envision abortions being done in the churches. Another one is interesting, talking about marriage versus prostitution. And again, it's kind of tough to find the ground floor on where they're coming from, but here it is.
The only real difference between marriage and prostitution is the price and the duration of the contract.
The only difference between marriage, traditional marriage, the nuclear family, and prostitution is the what?
The only real difference between marriage and prostitution is the price and the duration of the contract.
Is the price and duration of the contract. See, this is these meetings, these conferences clearly set up in places where there will be support for it to simply come out and attack God's plan for man. One man and one woman, what they call the nuclear family, what we know as the traditional family, and what they can do to derail it, to see it completely demoralized and moved away from here in this country. But friends, we're all here as a result of it. Not perfect. No, we of course know that, but it clearly is God's plan. Now, they're going to again attack the institution. They even call it that, the institution of marriage. And they're going to attack it and saying, well, let's play this next clip. Clip 4.
The institution of marriage can only exist alongside the criminalization of sex workers.
And maybe you had to be there. Surely that might help me try to simply understand this human being that is there who's saying that the institution of marriage can only exist alongside the criminalization of sex workers. Trying to say that, this marriage is, again, it's racist. It's inherently repressive. Traditional marriage is what they're saying. The nuclear family only reinforces and reproduces capitalism. And they're trying to justify sex work. What's the next? Clip 4, please.
I think the left is constantly surprised at how few people are, ready for revolt, despite, the extremely dire conditions that we're in that keep becoming more and more dire every day.
These people feel they're in just these dire conditions under such extreme, repressive, racist capitalism here in this country. Again, these are the ones who are in favor and who are driving the candidacy of this Zoran Mamdani in the New York City mayor race. And, it just goes on here. Another reason that capitalism must go.
Women and children are the most harmed by capitalism, but also women and children are the architects of their fate.
Women and children, she says, are the most harmed by capitalism. And then one more comment here regarding criminalization and capitalism. The
criminalization of sex work is like the dark underbelly of the sanctified, reified, and legally like enforced institution of exchanging your bodily autonomy and your sexuality for economic security. I don't think one can exist without the other.
again, just trying to balance this a little bit and trying to just, I know that this is a fellow human being, and I'm overwhelmed trying to understand some of these comments and where they're coming from. And it basically just says that the family in America has to go. That's basically what this whole thing is about. And again, everyone that was there on this panel that I saw when we were pulling audio, everyone wearing the mask and just hating life, basically, here in America. And they're doing all they can to destroy it. And simply saying that the nuclear family has got to go. And I know that we all have our voice, and we do need to stand up, but there are clearly lines that have been drawn on those who just want to destroy, and then there are those who want to see things be better and see everyone winning. And it doesn't have to be us versus them. And we know there are huge divisions and ideology and things like this, but this is an all-out, well, it is what it is. And I'm glad to turn the page and move on here. Daily Wire. We're shifting gears. Daily Wire reporting a decades-old court order that blocked the federal government from using tests to measure job applicant skills was terminated by a D.C. judge late last week, and that set the stage for an overhaul of the federal workforce that could become one of President Donald Trump's most lasting achievements. Anyone tired of winning yet? I've heard that comment, read that comment many times on the social media this week. Those who are watching what is truly happening, and, well, we're not being told about it. Legacy media is not talking about the successful things that are taking place, the good things, even bipartisan things that are happening in many cases. And it's, the question I saw several times, tired of winning? No, there's a lot of good things happening. But quickly to get through this story here before our next break. In 1981, Angel Lovano sued the federal government over the Professional and Administrative Career Examination, a test that helped identify the best and brightest out of the tens of thousands who apply for government jobs each year. Lovano, he argued that the test kept too many blacks and Hispanics out of government, and in the waning days of the Carter administration, the Office of Personnel Management agreed to pause the test for 5 years. 45 years later, the Lovano consent decree was somehow still intact. In January of this year, the Trump administration filed a brief challenging that agreement, arguing that it was doubtful the decree was ever appropriate and that with Supreme Court case law outlawing affirmative action, it was certainly not now. Well, today, Angel Lovano is still alive and agreed to terminate the consent decree. Court papers show this. So for almost half a century, the federal government has operated like a college that didn't look at SAT scores when admitting students. This move opens the door to technocratic hiring assessments that allow the government to hire applicants who objectively demonstrate the most aptitude. So again, the headline says, for the first time in 40 years, the federal government can judge applicants by merit, which very well could become one of President Donald Trump's most lasting achievements. That music says it is break time. There is so much more to get to, and God willing, we will. Also, a word from U.S. President John Adams in the next half. Year after year, generation after generation, we Americans enjoy the right and opportunity to let our voices be heard through the election of our governing officials. America's republic stands alone among nations. Our founders pledged their life, their fortune, and their sacred honor in the establishment of this nation. Our founding documents have guided this nation and are the substance by which today's laws are judged. Do you own a copy of the Constitution? We expect our leaders and judges to follow it. But do we even know what it says? In a handy pocket-sized edition, VCY is making available a booklet containing the U.S. Constitution, all 27 amendments, and the Declaration of Independence. One copy is available for a donation of just $3, 5 copies for $12, or 10 copies for $20 to VCY America. Call 1-800-729-9829. Friday brings a news roundup and comment. Thanks again for joining us on the VCY America Radio Network. Just before we went to break, we were talking about President Donald Trump. Just the news saying that Donald Trump just yesterday, Thursday, announcing that he has selected Chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, Stephen Myron, to fill an empty spot on the Federal Reserve on an interim basis. Myron will replace former board member Adriana Kugler, who was appointed by former President Joe Biden in 2023. Her term expected to end next January, but she resigned unexpectedly last week. There is so much to being president, and I don't know. We don't know. We probably don't know the half of it, but a lot of good things coming out of Washington this week, and we certainly want to celebrate those things. WhiteHouse.gov. You probably heard a little bit about this earlier this week as Donald Trump met with Apple CEO Tim Cook. We'll prepare the clip here. Tim Cook was there along with others, and the company, Apple, will increase its U.S. investment big time. Go to clip 1 here.
Today, Apple is announcing that it will invest $600 billion, that's with a B, in the United States over the next 4 years. That's $100 billion more than they were originally going to invest. And this is the largest investment Apple has ever made in America and anywhere else. And it's just an honor to have you. As you know, Apple's been an investor in other countries a little bit. I won't say which ones, but a couple. And they're coming home. $600 billion. It's the biggest there is.
I like how he said with a B, with a big B. $600 billion over the next 4 years as Apple will bring additional components of its supply chain and advanced manufacturing back home. Apple's investment includes a new American manufacturing program to incentivize its suppliers and partners to join them in accelerating domestic manufacturing. And so that means jobs. Jobs. Jobs.
These investments will directly create more than 20,000 brand new American jobs and many thousands more at the Apple suppliers like Corning, Broadcom, Texas Instruments, and Samsung, who all deal in that world. As part of this historic commitment, Apple will massively increase spending on its domestic supply chain for the iPhone and will build the largest and most sophisticated smart glass production line in the world in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. I did very well there. I like it. It's a great place. You're going to be very happy.
So, wow, that is awesome news, some really big news, and we're obviously excited to have some more of the positive. Now, speaking of Donald Trump, according to the Daily Wire this week, newly released Census Bureau data, all income groups in America advanced more during President Donald Trump's first term than they did during the Biden administration. Stephen Moore, a senior visiting fellow in economics at the Heritage Foundation, presented the unpublished data for the first time in an Oval Office presentation with Trump on Thursday. The data divided Americans into three groups: lower income, which is the bottom 25% of earners, middle income, the 50%, and then the upper income group, which would be the top 25%. Under Joe Biden, the lower class, after adjusting for inflation, lost income over the course of 4 years. The middle income earners stayed about the same, but the upper income earners did noticeably better, according to this newly released Census Bureau data from Stephen Moore. And he says that the rich were the only group that did better under Biden, which is ironic because Biden kept saying he was trying to get rid of income inequality, and he made income inequality worse, not better. And how about this one from thefrank.com? Cambodia announcing earlier this week that it is nominating President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize after he helped bring the Cambodia-Thailand border conflict to a ceasefire agreement. Cambodia's Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chantol saying Trump, should get the Nobel, not only for his work on Cambodia, but also elsewhere. We acknowledge his great efforts for peace. Speaking of peace, Just the News saying that Donald Trump on Thursday announced the leaders of the Caucasus countries Azerbaijan and Armenia and how they're meeting at the White House apparently today for a historic peace summit, which will include or is including a peace signing ceremony. The two countries have been engaged in conflict since the 1980s, but tensions most recently flared in 2023 when Azerbaijan invaded and took over the Armenian enclave, Nagorno-Karabakh. The two countries announced back in March that they were prepared to end the decades-long war, and the peace deal was reached after Trump Special Envoy Steve Witkoff visited Azerbaijan earlier this year. And this, I know there's a couple of stories that we definitely don't want to miss out on here today. Let me mention this one more thing about Donald Trump, and we all know that he has brought to the nation's attention. He's brought to all of our attention that next year the United States will celebrate our 250th birthday. Did you know that? You know, every year, the 4th of July, Independence Day comes around. I have to think, now, how old are we? I have to think. Okay, well, he has made much of this fact and all that is being done, even as we speak, to rightfully celebrate and give thanks for next year, America's 250th birthday. And there are so many things going on, including on the White House website, detailing different things and helping people understand, how God has so blessed this country. And God willing, we'll share something here before we close out today's program, just a little snippet of the things that are being done. Because, again, as we've already shown here, this present hour of Crosstalk today, in so many of the stories, there are so many working against these freedoms that we have here in our country, and they're not hiding it. Those that say that capitalism has got to go and that socialism is the only way, those that are going to fight tooth and nail to do these, to bring down what America is and what she stands for. How we got to 250 years. And will we be able to see beyond that? God willing, yes. But, there's so much. We could spend an equal amount of time here. We talk about bad stories. We can share, the bad stories. We could share even more of the good, and those are out there. But we all know that what is the famous saying? The cost of freedom is what? Eternal vigilance. That's what the cost of freedom is. Eternal vigilance. 250 years old. Stay vigilant. Be thankful. Count our blessings. Stand in the gap. And as Christians, we who truly have our citizenship in heaven, how much more could we and should we be doing? Knowing the present day, an hour that we're living in. Pastor Jack Hibbs is doing something about it. He's awake. Not woke. He's awake, though, to the things that are going on where he is. Christian Post reporting this week, popular, I don't like that word, but it's in the article, popular California pastor is warning Christians they might have to flee the state of California if AB 495 gets passed. Now, Pastor Hibbs of Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, warned his congregation just last week about, yes, AB 495.
The meat market bill. It is a trafficking bill. It is unbelievable. So much so, don't believe me. Go to realimpact.us. It allows an individual to obtain this new form that comes with the bill. They fill it out, and they can name a child. John goes to a school in California and says, I have this form, and I am asking for Susie Q to be received into my custody. I want to take her out of school. The bill does not require a background check for this man, requires no identification, no driver's license, no nothing. There's no requirement in the bill for the school to call you to ask you if it's okay if John takes your daughter out of school.
They're calling it the meat market bill, the trafficking bill, and he's saying that he's telling his congregation, he's warning Christians, if they pass this, get out of Dodge. And of course, I know we're talking California here, but you get the point.
If this bill passes, I am going to ask you to leave the state of California. You're going to need to pack up and you're going to have to get out. You got to get out. You got to run with your kids. You got to go. The meat market bill. It is a traffic.
So, wow. We obviously appreciate the warning, and there's places you could clearly go to learn more about this. Obviously, this is in California, and we're on the air there, and so we trust that God's people are awake to this and helping to. I believe they're looking to truly move in on the Capitol there next week to let their voices be heard. That this is just something, because again, if it happens there, then it could clearly just continue across the country in different realms. And so God's people needing to stand up, and thankfully this pastor is warning his people. And again, it's the Family Preparedness Plan Act of 2025, or AB 495. If you want to get some more information about that, and let your voice be heard. There's been quite a bit of news this week, obviously, on from the Kremlin and Russia. The Kremlin saying Thursday that Russian President Vladimir Putin will meet with Donald Trump in the coming days. At the suggestion of the American side, it has been agreed in principle to hold a bilateral meeting at the highest level in the coming days. This from Putin's foreign affairs advisor, Ushakov. Ushakov said the target date for a summit would be next week. Putin later said the United Arab Emirates would be a suitable host country for the meeting. The proposed summit would be Trump's first meeting with Putin since he returned to the White House earlier this year. I know they've been on the phone together and different things, but this would be their first in-person meeting. So we'll see what that'll, of course, be coming up next week. We'll see what all takes place there. Come back for our final segment and hear from U.S. President John Adams Really? Stay with us.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brendan House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Can I ask you a question? Are you under spiritual attack? I hope you are. You may say that's not a very nice thing. But reality is, if you are making a difference for the Great Commission, for Christ, you should be under some kind of spiritual attack. What does that look like in your life? Is someone attacking you, lying about you, slandering you? Are you being discouraged with attacks that are coming out of nowhere? Well, you may very well be under spiritual attack. Let me ask you this. Are you speaking truth to people? Real spiritual warfare is found in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, that says we're to destroy every lofty thing lifted up against the principles of the Lord, taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Real spiritual warfare is setting people free of lies. Now, if you're out there spreading the gospel, proclaiming the gospel, teaching truth, then you're going to come under attack. So today you might say, well, I'm having a bad day. Are you? Are you under spiritual attack? Don't let it get you off course.
And just mention this one, get this one in here. CNN talking about the wildfire smoke and air quality taking a serious hit across the country as this twofold blow of wildfires in the West and in Canada have sent smoke pouring across large section of the country, a problem that is set to continue. CNN reporting the smoke concentration has eased some since Monday, but does remain a significant health concern, especially for people with breathing issues, children, and the elderly. California's Gifford Fire became the state's largest wildfire of the year on Tuesday. It's burned through nearly 84,000 acres of Santa Barbara and other counties since it ignited late last week. Yes, they're burning out in California again. Arizona dealing with fire and smoke. Another wildfire threatened nearby communities is Utah's Monroe Canyon Fire. Wildfire season in the U.S. is far from over, and smoke issues will persist as long as fires blaze. So just wanted to throw that one in there. Just before the break, we mentioned that about Russia, Putin meeting with Trump next week. How about Russia Gate? U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi did sign an order launching a grand jury investigation into the beginnings of the Democrats' Russiagate conspiracy against then-candidate Donald Trump, a scheme that carried through the entirety of his first presidency during the 4 years before his second term, and even today as some extremist adherents. Social media confirming this is massive. Some sources mentioning James Clapper, John Brennan could be the first to be charged. But it was a conspiracy theory launched by Hillary Clinton's campaign and even aided by Barack Obama, including the CIA and the FBI, that somehow in 2016 Trump's campaign was colluding with Russia. How many times have you heard Trump saying Russia, Russia, Russia? Okay, well, that's what this is all about. Pam Bondi is on this, signing that order, launching the grand jury investigation, and America is watching. From Western Journal, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing Thursday that Israel will completely reoccupy the Gaza Strip. Fox News' Bill Hemmer asked if Israel plans to take control of all of Gaza, and the Prime Minister responded, "We intend to." Well, we don't want to keep it. We want to have a security perimeter. We don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern it properly without threatening us and giving Gazans a good life. He said right now, it's not possible with Hamas. So we'll see where that goes. And speaking of Hamas, the Geller report this week, Hamas forced, there's some crazy propaganda out there, but Hamas forced an emaciated Israeli hostage, last name of David, to dig his own grave in a sick propaganda video that has been circulating. And in a nearly 5-minute clip, the 24-year-old David is seen in a tunnel with a ceiling roughly as high as he is tall. and crossing off dates on a calendar and digging a grave. And in the footage, he says, "I haven't eaten for a few days in a row." And there's photos of others, captives in the background there, and you can just tell these, emaciated is definitely the word. These people are starving, and that's clearly what starvation looks like. And this is the propaganda and the stuff that Hamas continues to put out there. Lastly here, before we share our final thought here today, Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert Kennedy dropping a bombshell Tuesday about mRNA vaccines and how they actually prolong the COVID-19 pandemic. Kennedy announcing about that the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, after reviewing 22 mRNA vaccine development investments, has began canceling them. He said, "We reviewed the science, we've listened to the experts, and now we've acted." He is saying that they've terminated the 22 mRNA vaccine development investments because the data shows these vaccines fail to protect effectively against upper respiratory infections like COVID and the flu. He goes on to say that basically they're not anti-vaccine, they just want results with their vaccine. So we'll continue to see where we go from here. In our final moments today, something beautiful at whitehouse.gov, and you just got to check these out. Obviously, we're limited. This is radio, but take a listen to U.S. President John Adams and him greeting us today.
I am John Adams, blunt, stubborn, and the indispensable voice for independence in the Continental Congress. He called me obnoxious and disliked. I call it telling the truth. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes or inclinations, they cannot alter the state of facts. In other words, friend, facts do not care about our feelings. While Jefferson penned the Declaration, I drove the debate, won the votes, and dared to speak when others hesitated. I stood on principle, even when it cost me popularity. I never stood alone. My Abigail, my conscience, my counselor, carried the burdens of home while steadying my heart with her wisdom. I became vice president, then president, but my proudest title was always patriot. Now the charge is yours. Guard liberty well, for once lost, it is lost forever.
That is just one of the many great videos that the White House is sharing. And I believe that PragerU is involved in the production of these. There are, all of the signers of the Declaration of Independence are there featured. Ladies of the Revolution. If you watch TV 30 Milwaukee, you'll be seeing some of these as we have shared those on television. But go to the website, whitehouse.gov, and type in /America250. We talked about our 250th birthday next year. Go to whitehouse.gov /America250 and check out the virtual museum that is there and get the kids involved. They need to see this. We're so blessed here in this country. We are so blessed here in this country. And surely you agree that having been as blessed as we are, and we say, God bless America, we also would say, America, let's bless God. He is worthy to be praised.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.